Hey, what's up everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so it looks like it's hotter than it is. This is some strange weather. It's probably about 68 degrees. It looked, from outside my window with this sun beaming, it looked like it was about 80 something. I don't know. We had a week, last week, a day where it looked gloomy, but it was warmer. I don't know what we're looking at, but earthquake weather is what this feels like to me. I've been saying that for a couple weeks now. But yeah, man, I didn't come here to talk about dang weather. I want to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. There was a couple things that was going on with their team in that first game that I don't think I articulated in the way that I want to. And the first thing that comes to mind is I don't think the Lakers did a good enough job of dictating pace. The Minnesota Timberwolves were playing fast to start that game. They were utilizing their athleticism against us. Even when we were going crazy with Luke, you could see that the way they were running their offense and the way they were just getting into their spots was just a little quicker than most teams do in a lot of situations. We have got to determine the speed that we play in this series. We cannot let Ant-Man and Mike Conley and those guys determine the speed in which this game is played. They are more fast, more physical basketball team. So to me, Minnesota would likely like to continue to play at a speed that's a little quicker and a little faster than we want to play. We need to make this game uncomfortable for them, and we need to do so consistently throughout the course of the series. I don't remember who we played, and it's been many years since this, but it was a game plan that the Lakers had against a very fast team that we were able to discipline ourselves to play as slow as snails. This is well before this era. But we were able to dictate terms in a way that slowed us down even further than we like to play, just so that team couldn't get out and play at the speed they like to play. And we were able to dominate that team, for which was a real matchup against us. A team that it could have been 50-50, but we had to dictate the pace. And the Lakers were able to accomplish that significantly in the way that they intended to. Won the series. I don't know that this series isn't the same way in regards to what's required. We will get another sample size of the Minnesota Timberwolves to see if that's going to be the case. But if they're going to play the way they played and dictate the pace, the Lakers are going to be in trouble, in my opinion, based on what we've seen in Game 1 and based on what we've seen throughout the course of the season as well. You know, the Lakers did not play well against the Minnesota Timberwolves throughout the course of the season. I want people to understand this, and we talked about this a lot. But with the exception of the very first game of the season, for which we were able to overcome Minnesota because they didn't have any energy. They didn't play with any energy, which is probably what spearheaded their intensity in Game 1 of the playoffs, remembering how that game went and probably having it thrown back in their faces as they look at the tape of the season series of the Lakers. They played with significantly less energy than they were capable of playing with, and I got on their case about it. Very first game of the season. But the next two games that we played the Minnesota Timberwolves, and of course this is prior to the Luka Doncic trade, but the next couple of games, I don't think the Lakers scored over 91 points in either one of those games. Something of that nature, to the point where we scored significantly less than we were supposed to. And of course we played the fourth game when Luka was now a part of the team, and a lot of that was thrown off by Ant-Man being ejected from the basketball game before it ended. Kind of dictated a lot of things. We played a lot better. But with the exception of that game and the first game where I thought Minnesota played significantly poorly than what they expected to, we did not play well against this team. And specifically, we didn't score much against this team. They played us well. And so that's something we need to understand. Our offense has suffered against the Minnesota Timberwolves all season long. And this playoffs is starting the exact same way. And so I don't know that doesn't continue throughout the course of this series. We are going to have to respect the importance of being more offensively intentional in this series than maybe we were expecting going into the series. Because at the end of the day, this team has played us well all year long defensively. They've been able to slow us down more so than probably any other team in the league. And so that's something that is just obvious. And then on the defensive end, you know, they're faster than us. They got Ant-Man. Scheming open shooters is not smart. I don't think we'll do that in the second game. It's been said that Ant-Man's the most blitz player in the league. Some of what has to do with that has to do with him being expected to not pass the ball very much. But to be honest with you, carved us apart in that first game, passing the rock around. He had 9 assists, if I'm not mistaken, 8 or 9 assists. He carved us up. The idea that Ant-Man can't play make is silly. Now, does he choose to? Does he prefer to do it himself? Does he trust his offensive talent around him? That's a whole nother conversation. But I think what also needs to be put into account is he spent a good portion of the season, for which a lot of the data about this team is about, without his number 2 guy on the offensive end, and Julius Randle. This is one of the first times since the beginning of the season that Julius Randle's 100% healthy. So you got to work into the equation a more necessary piece to speed up their pace, score more, stretch the floor, and ultimately just be a powerful athletic player, for which a lot of data didn't account for when considering this basketball team. So Julius Randle is the big throw-off for the Lakers because he's a motivated player who used to play for our team for many years, drafted by us, and he's had some bad playoffs throughout the course of his career, and a lot of people are expecting him to continue to play poorly as if they also haven't seen him be an all-star in this league. And then I take into account the context of him being injured throughout the course of them playoffs, for which a lot of that data was taken from. So it's like he has something to prove in this series double time. So I don't expect for him to have a bad series. In fact, I expect for him to have a very good one. So it's like, are we considering all of these things when we assess this basketball team? I just think people have taken the Minnesota Timberwolves lightly. And because they're in Minnesota, because nobody's really paying attention to them, because they have Ant-Man who's shooting more threes than anybody else, they're kind of expecting certain things from Minnesota that doesn't necessarily speak to what Minnesota's capable of doing. This has been my point of view on Minnesota all year long, that I thought their coach has kind of hampered them by utilizing only half of the roster, when the second half of the roster, I could argue, is much more powerful, stronger, and has upside that is worthy of being utilized much more in this league than it is on that team. So that's always been my take on the Minnesota Timberwolves, particularly this season. It's the deceptive nature of what they're capable of being versus what it is that everybody has seen them be, what it is their coaches asked them to be. And so I already go into this series thinking, yo, we can see some things that people aren't looking for. Because that's the nature of the Minnesota Timberwolves 2024-2025. Plus, you got to understand, the team's been together for a couple years now. Most of these players been on the team for a while, with the exception of Julius and maybe some of these rookies. Everybody else, and of course, DiVincenzo, who played with Julius, so there's already some continuity already worked into that equation. But now you have to understand that the rest of these guys been together for at least 3 years. The majority of them been on this team for at least 3 years. They don't have a lot of turnover on their roster. And so that continuity, coupled with the fact that they've been uber successful together, getting to the Western Conference Finals last year. You know, you look at Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, Ant-Man, Conley, McDaniels. These guys have been on the team together for like 4 years or more. And so it's like, man, I just don't. The more I think about the Minnesota Timberwolves and what they did in the first game, the more I understand the Los Angeles Lakers got a real uphill battle. And some of the people who were asking for this matchup, they may have asked for a little more than they probably were ready for. You know, a little more than we were ready for. And I thought that I did a pretty decent job of helping people understand that Minnesota is better than the consensus. Minnesota should be respected more than the consensus. And I think game one forced everybody to see that. And then you couple the national TV factor, which Shannon running around telling everybody Lakers in 5, which I think is being taken literally. I don't think that's supposed to be actually considering what the series would actually look like in Shannon's eyes in a lot of cases. He's just saying the Lakers are going to win it no matter what. 5 just makes it easy to roll off of the tongue, in my opinion. And that was a precedent set by somebody else on social media that he snatched from somewhere and continued the process. Because that ain't the first time I heard that way of doing things. And 5 is just the easiest way to say it. So I don't think Lakers in 5 is actually what Shannon is expecting to be every series. It's not like we're that dominant of a basketball team. Your confidence should not tell you we're that dominant of a basketball team based on what it is you've seen. So I ain't one running around saying Lakers in 5 in every damn series, because that's not how good we are. If I'm being completely honest with you, we got too many role players on this team and too many dead weight guys that are not even playing for me to think that we're going to be beating everybody in 5 in the Western damn Conference. You know how difficult the Western Conference is? I don't believe that phrase is taken literally. I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think people expect the Lakers to only lose one game in every series in this playoffs. I just think that is just something that is easy to run with and catchy, and that's what ESPN is all about. So, yeah, it's not literal. I do not expect the Lakers to win 4 straight games after getting their butts kicked in this series in the first game. I don't expect that. I don't expect that. I'm more inclined to think we're probably going to see more of the same than I am that we're going to win 4 straight. And the concern that I have is not about Austin playing all that poorly. I don't think Austin played as poorly as people are telling us he did. I think the defense on Austin was intense, and he just does not handle that type of pressure very well. When the wing defenders are over talented and bigger than him, he has always struggled with that. And then you got to take into account the Luka factor of game 1, which was Luka went for his early like he used to in Dallas when the team was constructed around him. Luka got to understand this team is not constructed around him. We picked him up and added him to something. This is actually a team that don't fit together at all. We're going to build something constructed around him in the future, but right now he's got to fit in. And although they told him to fit out, the Lakers, our stars, LeBron and Austin, they really do need to have the ball in their hand to do the things they love to do early, just like Luka feels he does. They're all the same player in a lot of ways. Austin's at his best when he has offensive players to get the ball to score off of assists, and he can operate around that. LeBron, same thing. Luka, same thing. But if we're going to just forego all of the logic and just say we want to turn the reins over to Luka for reasons that don't have anything to do with basketball, which I think is a lot of what this is about, people falling in line instead of doing what they need to do to strategize against the Minnesota Timberwolves. LeBron knows he has to take a back seat, so he's taking a back seat. And then struggling to find his rhythm because he's not used to taking a back seat, obviously. I think that's in the same ballpark as politic ball. We used to talk about last year when we do things for the wrong reasons. We're doing things because they should be done from the business aspect. Like the LeBron needs to forcefully hand the reins over to Luka, and it's just considered he's the second best player on the team from here on out. It was kind of understood with AD, but it wasn't as profound and as pronounced as an organization as it is now. So Luka needs his shots. Luka is the focus. And I agree, Luka is actually the player that should probably be getting the first reins. But we need to do it with a bit more grace and a little more logic attached to it, what it is we're doing. We can't just be like, okay, it's the playoffs, Luka's our guy, we need him to resign, so we're putting the ball in his hands and giving the finger to everybody else deliberately so Luka knows that we're giving him the finger, so he knows that he's the number one. It's like that's what it feels like the Lakers are doing, and it's going to cost you in these playoffs. There needs to be a bit more diversification amongst those 3 players, parity in regards to our strategy, to be not as predictable in how we operate, and I think we get to play it a case-by-case basis based on what it is that's coming at us, not necessarily just putting the ball in Luka's hands, telling him to get all the shots, and then that be like that type of thinking. And that don't actually work on the basketball field. That don't actually work in your strategy. You need to be a bit more graceful. There are going to be certain nights where you want Luka to get off. There are going to be other nights where Luka's going to have to let other people get off and let the game come to him a bit more so, rather than just, okay, I'm the guy with the Lakers, everybody's here to see me, and I got to do this over LeBron James because we have to make it clear that we're moving forward. And Luka, it just feels like that's what the Lakers are really doing. And I'm telling you, that strategy, that ain't going to work. Not at this level of basketball. The business of basketball needs to understand that if they want their subjects to play at a high enough level and be successful so that their investment makes sense, they got to get out of the way. The business of basketball must get out of the way so that the strategy of excellent basketball, for which this league is about, can be as excellent as it's going to be in strategy and in execution of basketball at the highest level. If you want a guy to be on the floor because you're paying him a lot of money, he's going to get his ass whooped a lot of cases. You want a guy to be on the floor because you could trust that he's going to be able to lead the reins, and he needs to have adequate backups. If you're going to sit a guy because you think that giving him 20 minutes will allow for you to be able to negotiate better with him than if you give him 40 minutes, then your team is going to suffer because of that. This politic basketball crap, it needs to evolve into a space where it can be more trustworthy of the talent and more trustworthy of the fan base to be interested in the talent, for the game to be strategized properly so that it can be as competitive as it needs to be. Okay? The business people need to understand you don't know basketball, and the basketball people need to understand that if you try to put business in basketball, you're going to suck. You're going to suck in comparison to the teams that don't make that decision. The teams that don't do that, the teams that don't have the ego and the business of basketball taking over the sport, are going to be the ones that strategize to their best, be as unpredictable as necessary, and ultimately going to hoist the championship. And so that's what I want people to understand. It's too much business of basketball in strategy of basketball, and it's getting in the way of the strategy, and it's leaving these teams at a disadvantage to engage in that. That's what it is. And the Lakers are one of the number one teams where that is relevant, because it's always about something other than basketball with our franchise. It's always some other type of moneymaker. But at the end of the day, your moneymaker is you winning championships. And if the strategy has to suffer, you're not going to win championships. So that's really what it comes down to. They got to stop letting this business of basketball get in the way of the strategy of basketball, because you're playing at the highest level. And if you don't strategize in an excellent way, you're going to suck. BDO 44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.